Today's guest is the CEO of Jetset World Travel, which she scaled from a one-person operation into a team of over 70 dedicated members, recognized on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies. She got the MBA she never wanted by navigating her industry's greatest crisis while expecting her first child. Also the host of the Who Made You the Boss podcast, she's dedicated to leveraging the illusion of control and teaching others how to turn obstacles into opportunities. Tailoring talkers, please welcome Lindsey Epperly to the show. Lindsey, how are you?
I'm great, Roberto. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. You're
Thank you.
welcome, is what I meant to say. Crazy.
No,
But
thank you.
thank no, but thank you. Um, but thank you. No, genuinely thank you, because you are Wonder Woman, Supergirl, like all rolled into one, because you're running business, you've got a busy household, you've got your husband to manage as well. If he's anything like me, then you've got a job on your hands, because God knows my wife does. And I don't know how you fit it all in, but you master of leveraging the illusion of self-control or control, which is something I really want to get into, because that's such a, it seems like a contradictory phrase to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it is. And
yeah,
I think that's why I tried to spin it in that way. But thank you for the compliments. It means a lot coming from the weaver of superpowers. I loved that intro to the show.
thank you. I'm trying different things out.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that one. I think I had I weave superpowers into every stitch at some point, which seemed to, yeah, people like that one.
Yes, yes, I can see that. Well, given what you do on the podcast, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. Weave
Cool.
conversations and so on.
Yeah,
Let's get to a weaving here. So you're calling in from Atlanta,
right.
Georgia.
That's a
I've got a
Georgia.
few I've got a few friends out there.
You do.
Yeah, I've never been. I need to get out there. Well, I used to work for an American company, and for some reason I found myself hanging out with the New Yorkers and a lot of people from the Atlanta and surrounding offices
You
at
know, the South is known
conferences.
for being so friendly, so it makes sense that you would make a lot of Atlanta friends.
So I tell you, I'll tell you what it probably really was. It's the accent. I,
Do you love the Southern accent, you mean?
yeah,
Or the Southerners love your accent?
yeah, yeah. So I know we're supposed to be talking about, helping people to avoid burnout, teach them how to scale their businesses and all of that stuff. But you could come on here and be talking about dry cleaning or putting out the trash, and I'd quite happily listen to you for an hour.
That's
So yeah,
hysterical. That's
it's the
hysterical
accent.
because I've been told from other Americans that I don't have a very strong Southern accent. So I don't want to disappoint you, but maybe I'll throw in a y'all on occasion
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
live up to the hype.
It's there though. It is
Okay,
there.
good.
So yeah, anyway, sorry, enough about my weirdness. So so take me back to, I'm guessing your industry's greatest crisis was what happened during the C word, just a
Yes, yeah,
few short years ago,
that
right?
little pandemic thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that was
exactly.
not a lot of fun to be running a travel agency with my husband as my business partner, all eggs in
Mm,
one basket when the pandemic hit.
yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about the illusion of control, I think this was my greatest boss essentially in teaching me how to let go of it because prior to that, and I remember actually like October of 2019 having a really great conversation with my mentor who said, "Hey, Lindsay, listen, the tighter you cling, the slower you're going to grow." And at the time I thought, "Oh, that's really great advice. Thanks. I'll just kind of like pry my death grip off a little bit, right? You know, as the founder of this company that had been the solo practitioner for so long and then started scaling it, like as you probably know, having been you know, front lines when it comes to serving in the service business. Like that's a really hard transition to make because the business is your baby. The practice is also something you're so good at. And so moving yourself out of that like lead practitioner and into a leadership role where there's not as much instant gratification, right? Like you don't
Hmm.
have the cha-ching of a sale that gives you kind of that high and you're just working kind of more in a like amorphous role that is big picture. That's not quite as gratifying. So all of that to say, I was clinging very tightly to control. And there's nothing like a world pandemic leveling your business to really pry your hands off of it. And then the insane thing through that was we quadrupled. We actually managed to leverage an acquisition opportunity. We then wound up on the Inc. 5000 list. We've grown even more since then. All of these amazing goals hit that I thought would take us 10 plus years, happen in a matter of 18 months.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, same for us. I mean, we literally were shut down straight away. I remember clients in the lead up to it saying, I'm really sorry, I can't see you next week because we're doing a it was like a work from home emergency test, or I can't remember what there was some phrase that everybody was using, and like a resiliency test or something, which meant they were closing the office for the day and sending everybody to work from home to see if it would work, because I
Yeah.
guess they knew this thing was coming. And I'm
Yeah.
one of those people that tries to live my life without watching the news, because I just don't like being depressed all the time. And
Same.
that's all the right, all the I mean, that's all the news is, right? Especially
Yeah.
with things. I don't want to be insensitive, because there are things going on in the world, so you have to be aware of them. But I try not to let them. It's very easy for them to take a lot of the energy that you need just to live your life as it is anyway, right? Do you know what I mean? Without kind of giving
Yes.
any energy away unnecessarily to stuff that is really beyond your control.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, that happened, and then all of a sudden we were put into lockdown. My business is shut completely. I can't serve anybody.
Hmm.
And then I've got some clients saying to me, "Hey, you're not going to be needed anymore because no one's going to buy suits ever again." Um, and that was that. So, what do? You kind of either sit there and wallow in it, right, and feel sorry for yourself, or you look around and you think, "What can I do?"
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we came out stronger,
So
but
same, because you
yeah.
looked around and you decided, what can I do? But and your a lot of your competition probably sat and wallowed for longer, and so you got a bit of a head start. It was at least how our experience was. It was looking out at the landscape and seeing, oof, people are shutting their doors and choosing to turn off their lights. And what if instead we decided to shine brighter during this time?
Hmm.
It'll cost us more, both emotionally and financially, but if we do this, we think we can come out stronger. And those are the decisions we made.
Yeah, because I guess similar to me, initially your reaction is people aren't flying, people aren't
Right.
traveling.
Planes are
Pla-
literally grounded.
Planes are literally grounded. There are countries that are literally shut their doors, like
Borders
Australia
are
and so
closed.
on. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
borders are completely closed. No one's going in or out. For me, it's like nobody's wearing suits. Nobody needs to get anything made. They're all going to be at home working on Zoom calls in their gym jams and pajamas and jogging bottoms and whatever
Yeah.
crap people wear, and still wear these days. Um, but then you kind of get yourself some breathing space, and you must have had to have done that. You must have had to have really wrenched yourself away from the business, taking your hands off the steering wheel, and then just kind of gone and done something else with your other. Well, I mean, you were pregnant at the time, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so you had
So
that to deal with.
just just like a ticking time bomb of knowing that I have to bring a baby into this whole scenario
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, well, and Roberto, we had a home under contract and we had to make the very painful decision of, do we keep our business or do we keep our home? And so we, actively every day we're making tough calls on what this looks like and what's our run rate now that we have that money to put toward the business, how long can we survive? And yeah, so yes, I wrenched myself away in many ways because my husband recognized, hey, this is actually going to be very unhealthy on the pregnancy if you are, the complete leader here, if you're the sole leader here, and we've got that to worry about. So he really stepped up during this time too and said, I'm going to oversee all of the cancellations and the postponements and the team at the time, and you sit in the role that you want to be in. And for me, that was a leadership role. I had been sitting as the CEO. It was a 10-person operation at the time, and now we're close to 80, I think over 80. And so I got to kind of try on an actual leadership hat, right? Like, I'd always been a leader, I'd always stepped into that, but I think focusing on how can I inspire others, how can I move and motivate, which is something I feel very drawn toward, and something I've been able to do through business and through my words and writing. And now I have a podcast because of that skill. But all of those skills were really refined during the pandemic. To your
Yeah.
point, you have to kind of shift your focus, or else you'll drive yourself a little crazy because you can't do what you love doing, which for me was planning travel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess how did you flip the switch? Because for me, it was like one day. So I went and did food deliveries because I have a motorbike, scooter, Vespa, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
it. And I was like, okay, well, I need to protect the cash that's in the business and the cash
Mhm.
that's in our savings, and kind of make that last as long as possible. And I think we went into lockdown in March, and we worked out that we would be dry financially by August. That's the
Mhm.
longest that we could survive, assuming no sales, right?
Right. Right.
So I was like, okay, I need to bring some income in. So the first thing I did was like take food jobs with Uber and Deliveroo, and I was just delivering. The irony here, Lindsey, is that when I was younger, and I get clients that had asked me to pick items of clothing up from their offices for repairs and stuff, and I turn around to them and say, I'm not a pizza delivery boy. I literally became a pizza delivery boy.
Uh,
Um, so karma. But so, but that gave me the kind of thinking space. And as I looked around, I was like, I don't think this is going to last forever. It's one of my
mhm.
clients actually told me, he said, this is a speed bump.
Mm.
Um, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to last forever. Um, and also I looked around and people weren't walking around naked. So
Still
for
wearing
me,
clothes.
still wearing clothes. Yeah, thank God, right? Um, well, lockdown one, everybody got into shape because everyone bought Pelotons. And then
Yes.
lockdown
Yes.
two, people kind of stabilized. And lockdown three, we all gave up on life. And my guy clients just put on so much weight, it was crazy on
Yeah.
average. So
Yeah.
thank God they were still wearing some form of clothing, right? Anyway, so so yeah, so for me, it was about knowing that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And at some point, you need to be ready for when it comes back. And now that I have talked at you while trying to ask a question, I think I know the answer to what you did is you stepped back, took yourself out of day-to-day sales kind of role,
Yeah.
moved up above the business so you could get a real bird's eye, and then you started to get strategic to then get ready for the time that people were going to get back on planes and
Yes.
start flying around.
Exactly, and we use that time, and but honestly, Roberto, I'm like you. I am driven by the dollar, and I have 1,000 ideas before lunchtime. And so, as soon as this happened and like profit is dried up, my first thing is like, why don't I open a cookie studio? Why don't I open a hat making studio? Why don't I, like I'm like coming up with other businesses. And there was one morning that my husband, we had a big whiteboard that just lived in our living room during this time. I hated that thing, but one morning he had written on the whiteboard, no new ideas, right? Like stick to what we know. If we're gonna hold this out, we're gonna hold it out. And so you're right, my time then was spent, okay, moving high level, but then also I understood a big problem in our industry was that there was a lack of leadership. And because so many others were kind of shuttering their doors and going into hibernation, there were a lot of individuals that said, I don't have anyone to talk to about this. And
Mm,
I'm craving community, and I'm craving someone else who feels the exact same thing that I do right now. And so we were keeping our lights on. We knew, same as you, we knew we have X amount of months that we can run with this. And then luckily government assistance kicked in and helped us last longer. But,
yeah,
stay humble. Did I ever want to be the type of person that was applying? Not type of person, that came out very terrible, but I never imagined myself, to your point, you never imagined yourself as a delivery boy. I never imagined myself seeking financial aid. And
yeah,
like I had always been upward and to the right in my business. And so it was a very big, eye opener and perspective changer and understanding and now relating of like, anything can happen to anyone anytime. And how do we, that gave me a lot of understanding, a lot of empathy. During this time, we opened our doors to everyone in our travel advisor community. So it was not competition at the time. It was, hey, even if you work for or you own a competing company, come be part of our conversations because we see that there's a lack of this out there. So we created this kind of community. And did that add bottom line dollars at that moment? No, no one could afford it because we're in the middle of, the industry's greatest crisis. But that eventually created our opportunities down the line. It helped us grow organically. So it was really being able to think strategically during that time, to your point, and creating a program that others could benefit from, which helped me too, because I wanted to give back in some way. I wanted to help. And I also just felt so lonely myself, right? Like
yeah,
going through the motions of this really weird experience and then also being pregnant at the time. So I also had a mom's group of people that were in the industry, really, really minute details that we were all experiencing the same thing at the same time. And that was just wild.
yeah. I think it's testament as well to the kind of American entrepreneurial spirit or whatever. I don't know, but I mean that's
Yes.
what
Yeah.
one of the things I miss about living and working in your country. Um, is just how you're kind of able to do things like that and bring people together for a common cause. Over here, I tried to do the same thing. So tried to set up a round table, reached out to other tailors, which is
Yeah.
very unlike me because the industry knows that I kind of generally don't hang out with everybody else. Um, and I said, look, guys, we're in this together, and let's just meet regularly, just share ideas and so on, and just try and get all of us through it. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we're competitors most of the time, but the world's big enough for all of us, and we want to make sure we're all here afterwards. Nah, nah.
Nothing happened from it.
I'm just gonna wait until people start buying suits again and go back to the office. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but if you do that, then you'll die because we don't
Yeah.
know. We don't know
Yeah.
that that's gonna happen, right?
Yeah. Mental health,
So
though, I
yeah,
mean, during that time, everyone had their, individual experiences and what that did to them. And it's so interesting to me now that the world has opened back up, that a lot of us have just chosen like, let's just move on. Let's not talk about it. Let's not. And I think it's important to, address a lot of the, such a strange and crazy experience that we went through like that. For me, though, I process verbally, as you can probably tell, and with words and writing. And so I needed to like get it out of my system and process it in that way. My husband, on the other hand, is an internal processor, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it ever again. Like, let's just move forward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, I think you know, what I say to people is you might not want to talk about it, but hold it somewhere
Yes.
in your heart. Just store it away. And the
Yeah.
times that you get it back out and just think about it, even if it's for the briefest moment, is when you're having a bad day or when something happens. Like one of my friends, she's a recruiter. She didn't win a deal that she'd been working on, and it really affected her that day.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "You got through COVID, dude."
Yes. You know, I actually take that perspective now too. And it actually, I found it has made me more of a risk taker,
Yeah,
because we've been to the bottom and we've lost it all. And we were able to become scrappy, become nimble. Our spreadsheet that we worked off of was Project Slim Fast, because it was all like, how can we cut as many expenses as possible? Right. Like, so we've done it, and we were able to survive. So to me, that gives me a lot more confidence that like, let's take another risk. Let's do it, because those risks are what helped us grow. That's why we acquired during
yeah,
the middle of the pandemic.
yeah. And hence the MBA that you never wanted,
Never wanted
right?
it. We
But you
got it
got it.
anyway.
Exactly, that's it. And because we have been through it and we now have those scars, we may as well learn from the experience.
Yeah,
Otherwise, what was it for, right?
totally. And I like passing that along to others. I have a heart for mentoring, especially other female founders and women in business, that because I know what it feels like to show up and question your worth and have that imposter syndrome, or also to tie your self-worth to your success. And I don't think that's necessarily just for females. I think a lot of individuals and high achievers do that unknowingly. And it takes like the rug being pulled out from under us to realize, oh wow, who am I if I'm not succeeding? And you are still a human of value and worth. But it took a lot of work for me to get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's talk about this leveraging the illusion of control. I
Yeah.
think for me, because I'm so visual, so when you say illusion, I think magic. When you say control, I think literally holding on to something. And then I'm like, but if something's magic, how can you like physically hold on to it? So
Yeah.
that's but I kind of think I know where you're coming from, but why don't you give me the whole like what that's
Totally. Let me
about,
tell you what
especially
I
from a
mean by that.
solopreneur point of view?
Yes. Well, and you know, I'm like, might as well be president of Control Freaks Anonymous. I am such a recovering perfectionist always. And I think a lot of individuals that create companies, that run companies, can relate to that, because that's how you got to that position to begin with, right? Like you have a certain amount of I want to do this on my own and independence. And what I mean by illusion of control is that so often we buy into, because we've chosen this path, we are more in control, right? Because we've become the boss. That's why I named my podcast, Who Made You the Boss? Like you think you're more in control because you made yourself the boss. You're not. And a lot of times it takes an outside circumstance to remind us that like actually there's so much out of our hands. And when we acknowledge that, this is what I mean by leveraging. When we acknowledge that, and when we actually plan and strategize around it, that's when we can really take off. I mean, for me, it took that gigantic lesson during the pandemic to so when I think of control, I think of it coming out in a couple of ways here. Tangibly in my business, I started giving over more of the, delegating. I learned to
Yeah,
delegate. Like, let's put it in a very clear, simple term. It was delegation. And that took a lot to learn. But from a mindset standpoint, I think that the way that I would try to control things would come out in that perfectionism, and it would come out in my attempt to, when I was burning out. And I know you said you want to go down this path and talk about burnout, but when I was burning out, I would just get tighter on things, right? Like I
yeah,
would think like the tighter that I cling, the more control I have. And maybe I won't burn out anymore if I just start like tightening up and getting into everyone else's business. And so a lot of that illusion of control was the mental hurdle.
yeah. I think I've come to realize that illusion of control recently. So I always like
Mm,
putting myself up as an example, and I'm also a method podcaster. So I will literally have an accident, have a mental breakdown, burn myself out, or go through what I'm just about to tell you,
yeah.
to benefit our audience and help my guest along as well. So my I had a VA,
Mhm.
and it started off great. And we've tried the whole VA PA thing before, and it's always been difficult. It's never lasted more than a couple months because I am such a control freak, and everything's got to be done the way that I want it done. And you know, I preach to everybody else, 80% is better than 100% not done, right?
Yeah.
Um, and um, and it's never worked out. But with this one, we went about 18 months, And then all of a sudden, I take responsibility, because it was my responsibility to make sure that that person had all the things that they needed to do to fill their hours and so on. But then there was you have the angel and devil
Mhm.
on your shoulders, and as an entrepreneur, I do anyway. And the devil's always there, sort of saying to me, she's goofing off, she's not doing. She look at what she's actually producing. That's not full-time work. You could do that
Mhm.
yourself in like half an hour a day. So why are you paying that person? Just take it. So all of this was going
Yeah.
on, and it festered for weeks and weeks. And then eventually I had a conversation with her, and then we just agreed to part ways.
Mm.
And she took some responsibility as well. She said, to be quite honest, I can't argue with anything that you're saying. Um, and if you'll give me a chance, I'll do better. But it then felt really awkward, and I was like, okay, well, maybe it's not going to work out. And then she resigned. That was that. Fast forward a month later, I'm freaking drowning,
Yeah.
because the little things that she was doing, put to the side, that
Yeah.
maybe there's some things that she shouldn't have been doing, whatever, but the little things she was doing were making a huge
Mm.
difference. The
Yeah.
domino effect was enormous.
Yeah.
And I turned around to my wife yesterday and I said, I didn't tell you, but I'm telling you now. This brings us on to working with your spouse.
Right.
But I'm telling you now, I've booked a call with her for Saturday, and we're going to have a conversation. She's willing to come back.
Mm.
So we're going to work out how we're going to work together and do things differently to how we did it the first time round. But I
Yeah.
said to Caroline, I need her back.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it's like we were actually taking a step forward as an organization, as a business,
Mhm.
and we're backpedaling. We're not just backpedaling fast, we're backpedaling rapidly, and I need to stop it. So I need to get her back, and we need to work it out and then start moving forward again.
Uh, that's really big of you to be able to admit the areas where you had faults, the areas where you can change, and what an amazing individual that's also willing to have that conversation. That's really exciting
Yeah.
because if you can work through that, then you guys can continue on that trajectory. Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, I get it. I run a virtual company, right? Like a virtual company of 80 people. And so you can't constantly keep tabs on it. And I'd say majority of them are independent contractors, which is fantastic. I'm
Mm.
not even technically the boss, right? Like they are their own bosses, run their own businesses, and we just kind of power the back office and help them with business acumen whenever they need help. But for the team, the leadership team that we do work with, everyone's virtual, and it has been such a lesson for me, right, to learn what it means to trust when you delegate. And for me, one of the biggest I guess for listeners, like maybe this is a good tangible tip that I learned during this process was learning to delegate the what instead of the how. And I learned this from my husband, who's very strategic and can put this in good words for me to be able to understand it. When I would just like micromanage everything. And he's like, you're just in everyone's business on the how. Like you don't need to know how they're going to do it because they're not going to do it the same way that you are. But as long as they achieve the what, the results that you've asked for, then that's what you need. It is tough when it's hourly though, Roberto. So I get it because if you're saying, well, I'm going to pay you for 10 hours, but it only takes them 5, that's a that's a different conversation, of course.
Yeah, I think I don't mind that. I don't mind if I've agreed, right, to bit that. I don't mind that. If someone gets their work done in less time, great. It's
Yes.
it's more and she'll never listen to this, so I'm not worried. But but it's more kind of that feeling that you when someone gets the work done, but then they don't come and say, so like I was always the person when I was an employee. I would get there at 6 in the morning, waiting for the owner to turn up to open the doors. In the end, they gave me a freaking key and the alarm codes and everything. So I used to open up and lock up at night. And then I was the sort of person that if I completed tasks, I would then be like, what else can I do? What else can I do? What else
Mhm.
can I do? And if they were like, we've got nothing else for you, just like go away. I would then go to another department that wasn't even my remit, and I'd be like, "Is there anything I can help you guys with?" Like, I used to pop my head around the account store. There was a girl in that I really had the hots for, but that's by the by. And I'd be like, "Can I help you, ladies, with anything at all?" And they're like, "Are you crazy? What is it with this guy?"
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's very, very hard for me to separate how I would deal with things
Yes.
and appreciate how other people do, and also realize that actually it's my responsibility. If I'm not getting anything coming at me, I then need to actually take the responsibility and say to that person, is everything okay? Have I given you enough? why aren't you coming to me? Don't feel like you can't come to me,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So again, this situation, it was difficult to go back, but then it was easy at the same time. And that sounds very contradictory, but the reason it was easy is because I took responsibility. And I said to my wife, I said, this situation is not actually that person's fault.
Hmm.
I'm the one that's meant to be leading.
Yeah.
This is 100% my fault. So the power, therefore, is within me to actually go fix it. Cue
Yes.
email. Hey, how you doing? I was just checking in just to see how you are. Do you have another role yet?
Yeah, yes. Well, and being able to see that, and especially when you saw it from the negative side, right? When all of those tasks wound up back on your agenda. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that leads to burnout so easily when you're
Yeah,
just overwhelmed, can't get your head above water, you're so in the weeds of your business. And I mean, that for me has been like, it's always been when I'm burning out, it's always been not just a symptom of overwork, but a sign of where I need to start handing something off. And I personally need to evolve, right? Like that it's not just that I need to stay in the same role and give away a few tasks. It's usually I need to bring someone to this role so I can take a different role. Like that's almost always been my burnout experience.
yeah, yeah. One of my recent guests, she described, you two would get on really well actually. Mariana, I should link you two up if you don't know
Yeah.
her.
I
But
love connecting.
she she said her kind of definition of burnout was that burnout is a result of, sorry, the cause of burnout is the lack of balance between giving and receiving.
Mm, yeah, that's
Which
really
if
powerful.
Yeah, which if you think about it, is the problem for most particularly service-based entrepreneurs. We
Yeah.
give so much, and then we don't take the time either for ourselves
Hmm.
or to look at what we're doing and think, should we be bringing some help in to give ourselves the grace and space that we need
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
sure that we can keep going?
Right. Even from just the mere, when I think about both being in a service-based business, but also being in a leadership role, both of those wind up feeling pretty thankless at most points. And not that any job feels opposite, right? I think everyone starts feeling like undervalued or underappreciated. And so you start getting a little bit more resentful. And I spoke to someone recently who's a burnout expert, and she said that's one of the fastest ways you can realize that you're burning out is because resentment is starting to set in. And that happens when there's an imbalance, exactly like what you're talking about, when you were giving
Yeah.
more than receiving.
Yeah. When
Mm,
you're in a situation, or you put yourself in a situation where the emotions that are being generated are energy takers, not energy givers,
yeah.
right? Because when you feel resentful, I mean, you think about that for a second. If we both just sit there and just think to times when we are resentful, we get angry or annoyed about stuff, um, and how much energy that takes from us as well. It can be exhausting if it's going on for a period of time. And then you think the opposite end. So think about those times when you've helped a customer or a client and they've been so happy, or you've spent your time on, I don't know, things that have just been making things better. It's the energy transfer is completely different. The feeling is completely
Mm,
different. So
mhm.
it's really, for me now, I'm so focused on trying to be in tune with how I'm feeling at any point in time with anything or anyone. I'm thinking, is this energy transfer, or
Yeah,
is it energy generating?
that's an interesting perspective.
Hmm.
So how do you, I mean, do you keep a rolling list? Like it is just in your head? Like how do you actually tally up when you feel like you are not winning? Because it's not, you know what I mean? Like when you feel like you're in the more balanced position, I guess.
I think so again, it's really just trying to tune in inside to how I'm feeling,
Hmm.
particularly here,
Hmm.
because where we feel all the, whether it's happiness, joy,
Yeah.
love, anger, resentment, and so on, it all seems to, for me personally, it all centers here in the chest. So for people
Hmm.
listening that aren't looking to the video of this, I'm pointing at my kind of around the heart area right now.
Yeah.
For some people, it's the head.
Hmm.
For some people, it's other parts of their body. Any of my British listeners listening, put those dirty minds away. Um, so it's really trying to be in tune with when something's going on. Where am I feeling that, and how
Hmm.
how am I feeling? Am I feeling light and happy? Like I went into town. I don't normally see clients on Fridays because I have to
Hmm.
run the business at some point. But I went in to see one of my long-standing clients because he's now semi-retired. Today was the only day he was going to be in town. And when I walked away from that and during, I was happy. I was in my element. I felt like
Yeah.
I was floating on a
Yeah.
cloud, you know? It's like I got the best job in the world. I've looked after this person for such a long time. It's been so awesome to blah, 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 blah. And then someone called me earlier, who I hope doesn't listen to this, um, to see if I could work with him. And as he described what he needs doing, I was recoiling and I wasn't listening to him at one point because my mind was searching through for ways to turn him down because he
Yeah.
was making me feel uncomfortable. And so
Hmm.
that's I don't even know if I've answered your question, but that's what it is for me. It's all about
Yeah.
feeling. It's not even a
Yes.
rational decision. Like, is this going to make me money or isn't it? I mean, the guy on the call today, that's going to make me money,
Yeah.
but it was generating negative feelings and making me feel apprehensive. So I'm just like, I don't care how much money this is going to make us. I don't want to do it.
Yes. Yeah, that did answer my question because it's an intuition and a gut type of thing, which
Yeah.
I can relate to a lot. I've made a most of my business decisions based off of just an instinct. I mean, I failed the only business class I ever took in college, right? So like book smarts are not my thing. And so it's more of that like tapping into, yeah, I've never thought to call it energy, but that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's good because we run at 100 miles an hour. Like
Hmm.
most of the time, we're making decisions super quick. We're reacting to things
Yeah.
as well. And I think it's not a bad thing to consider just slowing down when something comes at you.
Yes.
Don't just catch it, right? Because the thing's on fire, right?
Right.
Half the time, these balls come at us, they're all on fire. So you're juggling them and then you're just throwing them out. And sometimes you don't throw them at the right place and then you cause a bigger fire somewhere else. Whereas if
Yes.
something's coming at you, if you can kind of, have you guessed that I'm a very visual person, Lindsey? If you can just be like, do you remember the Matrix?
Yeah.
Do you remember when Neo becomes self-aware and the agents are shooting at him? There's like a hail of bullets, but
Yeah.
suddenly he
Yeah.
gets it
Yeah.
and he just puts his hand up and he says no,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then the bullets just stop and hover in the air and he kind of considers and he cocks his head to the side and then they all just fall to the floor
Right.
and then he's like, right,
Yes.
this is how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's
Because
how
he
I'm
slowed down.
trying.
Yeah.
Because he slowed down, slow
Mhm.
down. If something's coming in at
Mhm.
you, just kind of
Mhm.
just back up a little bit, create some space and just say, okay, what's coming at me here?
Yeah.
Do I
Well,
really
and
want to
if you
take this
feel
on?
that, yes. It's well that I mean it's so wise because I think a lot of times we think, well, of course it's a job, it's going to feel negative at times. I just have to put up with it. But there are certain scenarios to your point of being able to say no to the wrong fit, right? Like that took years and years and years for me to learn. And I was under the impression that I needed to get thicker skin when I would feel that. I would, and the idea to get thicker skin is to callus. And so to just like keep repeating that same negative feeling and thinking that it was going to eventually go away until my body was physically reacting to, no, you do not need to be putting yourself in that situation that makes you recoil and makes you say, I don't want to really work with this person. Like, why do that to yourself?
Yeah. Because we both work with similar people, right?
Hmm.
They're generally wealthy, high net worth,
Hmm.
successful, whatever, overachievers, who are very, very demanding on the people in and around their lives. And
Yeah.
we form part of that. We're part of that team that makes their lives better, run smoothly, saves them time, all of that wonderful stuff. But everybody that works around you, works for you, still deserves some level of respect. I don't know where we kind of went off in this conversation. But also to reinforce the point is that sometimes I will do podcast interviews with people and I think to myself, thank God that was over because they were really hard work. Because you get people that come on, they only want to actually sell their thing. They don't want to give anything away about themselves, their company. Sorry, not their company, but they don't want to give anything away about themselves, any of the
Yeah.
things they've learned because they've got some coaching course or something that they want to say for that. And they,
Right.
and they're the hardest work. And I'm like, I don't want to interview those
Oh my
people ever
God.
again. But you completely different because my energy levels are way through the roof. And I'm thinking, we're going to get to the end of the time that I've got with you very shortly. But I want to do this again. And I'm actually there's some other ideas I'll talk to you about offline because this lot don't need to hear all about it. But I've got some ideas.
I love it.
So yeah, anyway. So yeah, so it's energy is a big deal for me at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
being
feel
in
that.
tune with that.
I
Yeah.
feel that. Well, thanks for saying that. I don't have any courses to sell, so don't worry. It didn't come on with the agenda. You know, it's funny. I pitched myself to you because I thought exactly that. We probably have a lot of crossover in the type of clientele that we serve, and you know, running a luxury travel agency, and the fact that like I send clients right down the street from you all the time. We never know if they might be in need of some tailoring services. Who knows what that might look like? Um, but you're right. There is a good energy here, and I appreciate you saying that. I don't really have anything to sell today. I just really wanted to have a good conversation. And I love how you put it that your listeners enjoy, like they're overhearing a coffee shop conversation. And a good coffee shop conversation should lead to more ideas, more partnership opportunities, more, you know, just a good bouncing off of each other. So
Yeah,
I hope we've
absolutely.
done that today.
Yeah, I hope so too. People will soon tell me. Um, so podcast, Who Made You the Boss, which I'm sure people can find anywhere that they like to get their podcasts. How's it going? When did you start? I've just subscribed, so I'm going to be
Thank
like
you.
binging episodes like crazy.
Thank you. Well, it shouldn't take you too long. It's pretty new. So I think I've got about 11 or so episodes, and our season 2 launches next week. So I'll have more for
Awesome.
you. But it's so much fun. You know, I started it because I really wanted to amplify and provide credibility for what we're doing at Jetset, which was really more about the professional development side, because that's something that we really look at, that we find important to our culture. And I started thinking, well, how can I get like a larger, you know, community around professional development? And so Who Made You the Boss was born. And this idea is, you know, especially as high achievers, as entrepreneurs, as anyone that finds themselves in a leadership role, there's oftentimes those little moments where the gremlins creep in, and the inner critic says like, well, who are you to lead a team of people? You know, you put your shirt on backwards this morning or whatever it is. Like they know you, they're going to know you don't know what you're doing. And I want to flip the script on that, because I feel like if you're running your company well, it's going to be a little bit larger every day. And every day you're running a company that's bigger than you've ever done it before. So you should feel a certain level of imposter syndrome because you haven't done it before. And
Yeah.
so my take on this is that when you hear that inner critic, give yourself a round of applause. Like you're doing something right. That means you're getting outside of your comfort zone. It's there for a reason. You don't have to listen to what it's got to say, but use it as a good omen that you're actually putting yourself out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the kind of tagline for the podcast, a podcast for recovering workaholics.
Yes.
I don't know if many of those workaholics that are subscribed and listening to you are recovering at all. We're probably still just workaholics, right?
Yes. Yes.
Just you just
But
move through the
we can
levels.
all work on it together
Yeah,
is my hope.
I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Who Made You the Boss? People need to go look for that. So Jet Set World Travel, do you only deal with clients locally, or can you look after clients anywhere in the world?
We're able to look after clients anywhere in the world. Yeah. So we are a completely virtual company. So
Yeah,
no storefronts to walk into. All of our advisors are located all over, and more than likely they're probably traveling at the time when they're working with you too. So that's pretty cool. It's a
yeah,
very flexible remote job, and they serve clients going anywhere from anywhere, however we can
brilliant.
help.
Yeah, there we go. So that's applicable to all of you, since this podcast is listened to on every continent in the world except for the North and the South Pole.
That's a great reach.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, some of those continents, Lindsay, there might only be one person listening, but still,
Still
you
someone.
know, some village in Africa or something.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Lindsay, thank you so much. We are going to have to do this again if you will allow me to interrogate you again.
Of
Um,
course.
but I have thought of a hundred different things that we can, sort of angles, things, subjects, whatever that we can go into. So let's talk about that offline. Did I ask you if you've had fun today? Have you had fun today?
I have had fun today. Thank you, Roberto. It's been a lovely conversation.
You're welcome. So thank you. Lindsay's going to be back, and I'm going to get that organized as soon as we come off this call. Thank you all so much for listening and joining Lindsay and I. Please do check out Lindsay's podcast, give her some support, show her some love, leave her a rating and review once you've listened to a couple of episodes, because the algorithms have all changed and now podcasts are getting served to people fresh when they've got the newest reviews. And please do the same for this as well. You can follow the show on Instagram for latest episode updates at Tony and Talk Podcast. Highlights and news are there as well. I'm doing this outro really badly, Lindsey, because I've had such a big break from this. I've forgotten what I normally say. You can email me at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Hit subscribe, give the show a rating and review. Click the share button. This is the important bit in your player to send this episode to someone you know who needs to hear what Lindsey taught us today. And if you love Tailoring Talk and you want to support the show, you can hit the support show in the link in the notes. Have a great week. Be good to each other. I'll be better at intros and outros on the next one, and I will catch you on that next one.